So this video is going to be about circumcision. And I have to warn you, there will be language and possibly images that are kind of gross concerning sexual anatomy and stuff like that. So if you don't want to see or hear those types of things, don't watch. But I will say that this information is extremely important. I didn't think I would have to make a video about this because I thought this was an obvious viewpoint for people who align with my ideological views, mainly like schizophrenic, space-denying, Catholic extremist conspiracy theorists who are right about everything, but apparently not. I was super surprised to see that a lot of people were still blue-pilled on the circumcision question. So the correct viewpoint that you should have on circumcision is that it's evil genital mutilation and sexual violence against children that permanently alters their physical, biological, and sexual human nature and is technically a satanic rabbinical blood ritual, and it should be completely banned. So process that for a second. We're going to break down the reasons why, but if you are having a son, which hopefully I'll be having one in the next few years, depending on if my wife wants to continue sleeping indoors, but if you are going to have a son, do not under any circumstance get him circumcised. I decided to make this video because I posted some anti-circumcision meme, actually a while ago, and a bunch of ostensibly right-wing people started attacking me using normie leftist tier arguments in defense of circumcision. They said the usual things that you hear like, well, girls think that uncircumcised penises look weird, and it's cleaner, I don't want crusty private parts, which are both just massive copes to, I guess, avoid addressing the fact that you were sexually mutilated as a child. Firstly, girls don't care. And if they did, why would you care if they care? Imagine caring so much what girls like that you're willing to physically deform yourself. That is the most simp thing you could possibly do. What if girls decided that they don't like guys with pinkies? Are you going to start cutting off your toes because otherwise women will think you look weird? Also, if you're a degenerate having premarital sex, then the girls that you're fornicating with have likely seen more penises than the Yankee Stadium urinals, so I doubt that their line in the sand on whether or not they're going to have sex with you relies on if you're circumcised or not. And if you don't want to go to hell and you aren't having premarital sex, then if like your wife refuses to have sex with you because you're not circumcised, then she's already not having sex with you for the right reasons of conjugal love and procreation, so you have far more things to be concerned about. Secondly, there is no extra dirtiness caused by the natural state of being uncircumcised. Your genitals are clean if you clean them. And if you take a shower every day like a normal civilized human being, you have nothing to worry about. And if you don't take a shower every day, then the rest of your body is already disgusting and smelly, so who cares? Also, despite common belief, circumcision does not help prevent STDs. And even if it did, there's other easier things you can do to prevent them than child genital mutilation, like not being a sodomite or not having sex with random whores. And you can avoid sharing needles when you shoot heroin, or if you're feeling extra paranoid, you can do something super crazy and not shoot heroin at all. The foreskin is intrinsically important to our human nature and sexuality. It's a natural lubricant, protects the glands from becoming desensitized, stores and releases pheromones, and the foreskin contains millions of nerve endings and is the most sensitive part of the penis. So amputating this part of the penis alters our natural human physiology by creating a permanent sensory deficit, including the loss of the male G-spot. It's not in the butt, sodomite apologists, sorry. Circumcising your child is equivalent or arguably worse than purposely damaging your infant's eyes so that they only see in blurry black and white for the rest of their life. Sex while being circumcised has been compared to kissing without lips. That's how drastic the difference is. Israel and the United States are the only countries that practice infantile circumcision en masse. Virtually every other country's medical institutions across the world has declared that circumcision is medically unnecessary, a violation of human rights, and a procedure that damages your sexuality for life. So I'm going to give some more information and history on circumcision, and the vast majority of this information I got from the lecture by physicist Eric Klopper, and it's called Sex and Circumcision, and I recommend that everyone watch it. The link will be in the description, and it goes much more in-depth than I will, but it is 2 hours long, and I know that some of you are Zoomers who have the attention span of a goldfish with Alzheimer's, so I'm going to try and present the most important information from this lecture in a shorter, more concise way. So this is basically going to just be a summary of his research. I am not claiming personal credit for any of this. I will be paraphrasing as well as using like direct quotes from him throughout this video. So go watch that video after this if you can, or whatever. This is going to be the most important information from that, but you should definitely check out his lecture. And by the way, Eric Klopper, who gives this lecture, was fired from Harvard and labeled an anti-Semite for giving this lecture, despite himself being ethnically Jewish. So you know it's good. Also, just a side note, while it is a great and informative lecture, keep in mind, if you're going to watch it, that he is a secular science cuck, and that's evident in a lot of his more subjective points. Like, he clearly doesn't think that masturbation is immoral, and he believes in the moon landing, so just a fair warning. So anyway, let's get into this. First of all, according to Eric Klopper, circumcision started 12,000 years ago, which, no, it didn't, because the Earth is less than 10,000 years old, but like I said, science cuck, but it was a long time ago. Let's just go with, 8,000 years ago. So circumcision started 8,000 years ago from different tribes as a step down from child sacrifice. They stopped sacrificing children to their fake and gay weather gods and just started castrating them. Much more polite. And then eventually they just started cutting off their foreskin. The tribal Jews, who would become the Jews or the Israelites of the Old Covenant, adopted this practice, and it was seen as a sacrifice to God, and it was seen to lessen sexual urges, as well as to make the child a part of their people and enhance tribal cohesiveness. Psychologists compare this to fraternity hazing, as it ascribes value to the shared pain and experiences we endure as the price we pay to join a group or a tribe. And I was in a fraternity, so I can confirm that shared experiences of being hazed definitely contribute to the unity we feel as brothers, but we actually found that doing things like push-ups and getting cold water dumped on our head was sufficient enough to reach that unity, and shockingly, we never found it necessary to make our pledges amputate any part of their bodies or anything like that. Now, an argument I've seen is, well, how can circumcision be bad if God allowed it? Well, circumcision was part of the old law, and that old law was made null and void through Christ, who was the new sacrifice and Lamb of God, and circumcision was fulfilled by baptism. So actually, circumcising with the intention of following the old law now is going directly against God. In Galatians 5:6, it says, "In Christ Jesus neither circumcision availeth anything nor uncircumcision, but faith working through love." So whatever God's original purpose for commanding circumcision in the old law, whether as a sacrifice, maybe to punish Jews who were, known for idol worship or something, or if it was to separate the Israelites from others, whatever it was, there is no religious reasoning for a Christian to be circumcised, whether you're Catholic or Protestant. Now, originally circumcision was just the removal of the foreskin that extended over the glands. But after the Jewish diaspora, rabbinical Talmudic Jews completely revolutionized the circumcision process as revenge for diasporic Jews who were stretching their circumcised foreskin out to make it appear as though they weren't circumcised in order to fit in with non-Jews. This is because, I guess, apparently in Rome, there was a lot of activities that were done in the nude, so they wanted to fit in with the other people that were doing these activities in the nude. I don't know why they were done in the nude. All actual pagans are gay, that's why, I guess. But anyway, so what these rabbinical Jews did was change the process of circumcision in 200 AD, and that process is still in practice today. What they do now is called the bris milah, which means covenant of cutting. Rabbinical Jews have a specific position for someone in charge of performing these circumcisions called the mohel. The mohel grow out their fingernail and sharpen it so that after they perform the regular part of the circumcision, they use their sharpened fingernail to cut away any excess skin left over, because if there's any genital mucosa left, it's deemed religiously invalid. Then, after the mohel shreds the infant's foreskin with his satanic sharpened fingernail to a raw bloody pulp, he performs what's called a metzitza. And this is extremely disgusting and graphic, but it's true. It's 100% true, and people should know about it. Metzitza is where the mohel puts his mouth on the infant's bleeding penis and sucks out the blood. Now, besides this being a satanic, pedophilic, sexual act of violence, it's also very unsanitary and a public health risk. Dozens of babies in Orthodox Jewish communities in New York have contracted herpes because of this ritual. Also, among other reasons, a big part of persecution towards Jews throughout history was due to this practice. The thought process was, if they're willing to do this to their own children, imagine what they're willing to do to non-Jewish children. St. Simon of Trent, look him up. And the way non-Jews are circumcised in hospitals today is that they are strapped down and a doctor cuts their foreskin off with a medical knife without anesthesia. This is actually the knife that they were originally going to use to circumcise me, but it wasn't big enough. So how did this Jewish blood sacrifice become a common American medical procedure? Well, unlike trying to figure out which bathroom Demi Lovato chooses to shoot heroin in, this isn't a mystery. It all started because American physicians who were mainly Jewish or Puritan-aligned Protestants viewed masturbation as incredibly evil, which of course is correct. I guess the age-old saying is true that even a broken heretical Protestant clock heading towards hellfire if they don't repent and convert to the one true holy and apostolic faith is still right twice a day. So in order to prevent children from masturbating, Puritan cucks viewed circumcision as a deterrent to masturbation as it makes their genitals less sensitive. Some even promoted circumcising young boys, not infants, young boys, without anesthesia so that they would associate sexual activity with excruciating pain so that they would be less likely to masturbate. Which might sound kind of based at face value, but it's evil and not what God wants. Now, as time went on and society got more secular and you had like the sexual revolution and other satanic things, masturbation prevention became something that would not incentivize the vast majority of people to circumcise their children. But what would incentivize them is if scientists said that they should. Because as we know, we must trust the science, because scientists never ever lie or have any type of personal agendas or anything like that. So if the scientists are telling you to amputate part of your penis and take 50 vaccinations, you better do it or girls will think you look weird. Plus, you'll endanger our democracy. And getting scientists to endorse circumcision completely worked. And in turn, multiple multi-million-dollar organizations and corporations formed that rely solely on the continuation of circumcision. Now, coincidentally, almost all of circumcision's advocates in America have been Jewish, including the two masterminds, Adam Freeman and Douglas Diakema, who I'll get to in a moment. Now, do you think there's a possibility that if you grew up in a culture that tells you that the foreskin is dirty or dangerous, that you might have an implicit bias regarding the foreskin despite your scientific degrees? I don't know. Now, before you start calling me anti-Semitic, which is nonsense, I love Jews. I love Jews so much, in fact, that I want them to convert to Catholicism so that they can avoid spending eternity burning in hellfire with people like John McCain and Betty White. But let's just say, hypothetically, because this is exactly similar to this, let's just say that I became a doctor, and Dr. Spexo, who in this hypothetical situation graduated Harvard with a 4.0 GPA, won a bunch of awards, converted 70% of the school's faculty to Catholicism, and played a big role in getting Harvard's name changed to St. Louis IX University, but I don't want to brag. So now Dr. Spexo is a world-renowned doctor, ladies love me, children admire me, and now I'm on this prestigious medical committee that provides nationwide medical suggestions, and now I use that position to say that everyone nationwide should baptize all newborn children because the benefits outweigh the risks, which is based and obviously true, but considering I'm Catholic, it would stand to reason that secular cucks might say I have a bias or a conflict of interest due to my religion. But then I guess I could just, label those people hate-filled anti-Catholic Holodomor deniers and have their lives ruined, right? Doubt. But that's basically what is going on with anybody who questions circumcision. But anyway, so circumcision advocacy being perpetuated mainly by culturally and ethnically Jewish people seems like there's at least the possibility of implicit bias, and would also correlate with the fact that virtually every other developed country condemns circumcision except for the two countries with the highest population of Jews in positions of academic institutional power, Israel and America. And when mainstream media promotes circumcision on a scientific basis, they are citing the research from the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is where Adam and Douglas play a large role on that committee that provides the research regarding circumcision. Adam Friedman has publicly stated that he circumcised his son because of 3,000 years of ancestors looking over his shoulders and called it a tribal custom. Conflict of interest check. The other Jewish man on the committee, Douglas Diakema, not only advocates for male circumcision because of Jewish culture, but has also published a recommendation on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatrics for ritual female circumcision, which is the removal of the clitoris, and is currently still considered barbaric in the Western world. Who knows for how long. And also, while people may say that female and male circumcision aren't similar, that's actually correct. They aren't similar. They are actually exactly identical in the amount of damage that they cause. Now, just like Dr. Spexo would use for baptism, the summary of the science they use to justify their promotion of circumcision is that the benefits outweigh the risks. They say that the benefits are that it prevents urinary tract infections, penile cancer, and sexually transmitted diseases. But as Eric Klopper demonstrates in detail in his lecture, all of the evidence they provide to show these benefits are pseudoscientific and their methodology is completely manipulated, disingenuous, and erroneous. For example, females are 10 to 50 times more likely to get urinary tract infections, yet we never suggest amputating parts of their body. And if you're going by the numbers that the American Academy of Pediatrics provides, which you shouldn't, it takes 100 circumcisions to prevent one UTI. So, you need to remove 100 crucial parts of the male sexual reproductive organ, permanently damaging the male for the rest of his life in order to prevent a nothing infection that's easily treated with antibiotics. As for penile cancer, it is one of the rarest forms of cancer on Earth, and if other planets actually existed, it would probably be the rarest form of cancer on them too. And according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, it takes anywhere from 922, less than 1,000, right? Less than 1,000. Anywhere from 922 to 322,000 circumcisions to prevent one case of penile cancer. That insane discrepancy means that they have exactly no idea how many circumcisions it would take to prevent even one case of penile cancer, because it is so insanely rare that the data does not even exist. And penile cancer only affects elderly men, which makes these statistics completely irrelevant to neonatal circumcision. Now on to the idea that circumcision prevents STDs. The data that they provide is a confusion between causation and correlation because genital cutting cultures do not simply map on to non-genital cutting cultures. But even if they did, America has both the highest rate of sexually active circumcised people as well as the highest rate of HIV and STDs in the developed world, which suggests that not only does circumcision not prevent STDs, but possibly contributes to the spreading of them, mainly by drastically altering the mechanics of natural intercourse, which causes bleeding and opens pores for pathogens to exchange between partners. It does, however, prove 100% that circumcision is not a deterrent at all whatsoever for any type of STD. And as for HIV, this is in line with them first claiming that circumcision prevents masturbation. Then they claimed it prevented syphilis and gonorrhea, and now they say it prevents HIV and AIDS. Ironically, the only true actual way to prevent all of these things is through Catholicism. But anyway, they have a tendency to basically claim that circumcision prevents whatever the scariest thing going on at the moment is. They claim that according to their own studies, in 3 African trials, 2.5% of uncircumcised men contracted HIV, while 1.2% of circumcised men contracted HIV, which is negligible at best, but they use this to claim that circumcision reduces risk of HIV by 60% through manipulative methodology because 2.5 is 65% more than 1.2. In Eric Klopper's presentation, he goes in depth on the flawed methodology used in these studies, including the fact that they terminated the trials once statistical significance was proven, the fact that circumcised men could not have sex at all 4 to 6 weeks after circumcision, and the fact that circumcised individuals in these tests were given more medical treatment, including teaching them how to use condoms, as well as other various erroneous things that they don't even mention. And they report these fake, dishonest numbers as statistical facts to promote the benefits of circumcision that, by all evidence, have no scientific legitimacy. So in reality, they present irrelevant, inconsequential, and erroneous benefits to circumcision that they claim outweigh the risks of circumcision. But guess what they say the risks are? They don't. The American Academy of Pediatrics tells us that the complications of circumcision are unknown because the data doesn't exist. Maybe it's because there's no legal requirement in America to report complications of circumcision, but there have been numerous instances of infants bleeding to death because of botched circumcisions. But that, of course, doesn't factor into any of the provided scientific studies. So this means that the people who provide the information in regards to circumcision are telling us all of these false benefits outweigh the risks, but that the risks are completely unknown. And the 20 bodily functions of the foreskin that they are recommending we amputate based on nothing aren't mentioned once in any of their documents. And to justify this omission, they use insanely broad statements that their research, quote, does not support the belief that male circumcision adversely affects sexual function or sensitivity, regardless of how those factors are defined. So, even though that all throughout history, one of the main reasons they were circumcising was because they knew amputating a large part of the male sexual organ would permanently damage the male sexuality, the Academy of American Pediatrics didn't feel that was a relevant fact to disclose. Then they use claims that there's no evidence that circumcision changes sexuality, but they don't even bother mentioning how they came to that conclusion. To put this all in perspective, this is kind of similar to like saying that cutting off a person's right hand doesn't affect people's writing ability. And to prove this, you provide research and trials where everyone who had their right hand cut off was already a lefty, and then you claim that there's no evidence that it affected people who were right-handed, but you don't substantiate that claim with any tests on right-handed people. It's just manipulative methodology. It's like doing a poll and saying that 99% of America supports abortion, but the only people you questioned in the poll were abortion doctors. It's just nonsensical. It's ridiculous. So as I said before, only Israel and America think it's a good idea to amputate part of the penis of newborn boys. Internationally, it is widely condemned, with academic medical research institutions all over the world saying things like it is a violation of child's rights, that there's no medical reason to circumcise a child before they can consent, and that the American Association of Pediatrics' findings on circumcision is embarrassing and incompetent. Now, despite all of this, there's no significant pushback on this satanic genital cutting culture because the industries profit billions of dollars off of harvesting newborn foreskin for medical research to create things like face creams. Look up the video of Steve Harvey trying a face cream and then finding out that it's made with human foreskin. Yeah, and you wonder why there's conspiracy theories about powerful people torturing and drinking the blood of children to stay young. Circumcising a child means that their first sexual experience is one of pain and torture and ensures the child will never know a natural sexual experience. It is an act of extreme sexual violence that has been committed against 120 million men just in this country. We have been psychologically brainwashed as a country into thinking that amputating an extremely important part of a child's sex organ puts them in a natural state. We call that natural state uncircumcised instead of natural, which is like calling somebody who has the ability to walk unparaplegic. It makes absolutely no sense. They manipulate research and terminology and normalize this horrible practice so that we are okay with an ancient rabbinical blood sacrifice that mentally, physically, and sexually scars a child for life. So in conclusion, the most important facts of circumcision are these. It is a blood ritual created in its modern form for rabbinical revenge as a step away from child sacrifice. It was designed, adopted, and implemented to damage children's sexuality. The foreskin is a natural and extremely important part of a man, and removing it is medically unnecessary sexual violence against children, a violation of human rights, and extremely damaging physically, mentally, and sexually. And it is only accepted in our culture because of profit and because a small group of well-placed ideologue duplicitous physicians have lied to our faces using erroneous research, largely due to their own religious and cultural bias despite their obligations as medical professionals. Now, I know I made some jokes, but for real, circumcision is downright evil and should be unambiguously and completely banned. Circumcision is one of the most evil things that we allow in this country besides abortion and women's suffrage. Some might say it's almost as evil as Holocaust denial. And while other non-issues like racism and the validation of transsexuals are force-fed to the masses, almost nobody is talking about one of the most depraved form of violence committed against infants nationwide every single day. So, if you're thinking about circumcising your newborn baby boy, I have one thing to say to you. Don't do that, man. Come on. That's not cool. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, go watch the full lecture by Eric Klopper where he goes much further in depth of just how barbaric and evil this whole thing is. The link to that video will be in the description. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.